Genghis Khan, the birth of a storm. The steppe does not raise gentle people. In winter, the wind cuts your face. In summer, the grass burns under your hooves. And all you have is your clan, your horse, your bow, and your belief that your ancestral line will not be broken. In the 12th century, the boundless spaces between Lake Baikal and Onan Karolin were inhabited by the Kipchaks, Tatars, Taijuts, Karites, Naimans, Merkits, and Uyghurs. The tribes lived by raiding and alliances, changing friends to enemies faster than the wind changed. Sometime between 1162 and 1167, a boy named Temujin was born into the Borjigin clan, according to one version, in honor of a captured Tatar. His father, Yasuji Batar, was the leader of a small ulus and a master of surprise attacks. His mother, Olin, was a woman of rare willpower. Temujin had brothers and half-brothers, and from childhood, he understood that kinship in the steppe did not guarantee love, and that strength lay not only in the hand, but also in the memory of debts. Yasuji chose a bride for his son according to steppe custom, Borte from the Hongarat tribe. The agreement was sealed with kumis and gifts. But fate struck like a hoof on a shield. On the way back, Yasuji accepted a cup of drink from the Tatars and was poisoned. The chief died, and the Borjigin clan immediately weakened. Allies turned away, servants dispersed, and the clan, which had once lived by the fires of rich camps, found itself almost destitute at Onan Karolin. Temujin's childhood turned into a school of hunger. The boys set snares for marmots, dug up roots, and caught fish in icy water. When a quarrel broke out between the brothers over prey in their youth, Temujin killed his half-brother, Bagtur, the first bloody choice in the life of a man whose destiny was to be measured not by the boundaries of settlements, but by the distances between seas. The Tajit tribe, despising the impoverished clan, captured Temujin and put a wooden block around his neck. He escaped at night, thanks to the compassion of one of the guards, a random moment of humanity in the steppe, where the price of a mistake is life. Since then, Temujin has had two unbreakable rules. Never forget those who are kind to you and punish traitors. Upon his return, he once again sought support in an alliance with the Hongarats and brought back Borte, now his wife, his childhood sweetheart. But his happiness was short-lived. At dawn, fate struck again. The Merkits, ancient enemies of Yasuji, attacked and took Borte away. For any steppe dweller, this was a blow not only to the heart, but also to the honor of the clan. Temujin turned to those who still remembered the old oaths. His old friend from his youth, Jamuka, and the powerful Karite Khan Togrul, Wang Khan. The alliance of the three forces was lightning fast. The Merkits retreated, and Borte was returned. Soon she gave birth to her first child, Joki, and the whispers of the steppe, which loved gossip more than kumis, continued to discuss whose son he was for a long time. But Temujin recognized the boy, thereby securing not only his family, but also the future discipline of his noyans. The law is more important than whispers. Temujin rode shoulder to shoulder with Jamuka for a long time. They were Andargani, brothers who shared one cauldron and one war. But ambitions in the steppe are like fire in dry grass. Give them a spark and they will flare up. Jamuka thought in the old way. Power is the lot of noble families. Temujin thought in a new way. Power is the lot of the strong and loyal, equal for those who serve the cause. It was in this difference that the future split of the steppe was hidden. Tradition versus order. When some of the nomads, nobles, and clans began to defect to Temujin, Jamuka declared him a renegade. In the battle at Ongud, he defeated Temujin's men and brutally executed the prisoners, boiling them in a cauldron as a reminder that those not born of noble blood had no place in power. Temujin survived the defeat, but came to a conclusion that he would later generously share with the whole world. Fear is momentary, but the memory of justice is long-lasting. He began to build an order where merit was valued above blood. Temujin began to gather people not by clan, but by tens, a decimal organization that would later become the lever of the empire. Tens, hundreds, thousands, 2 months. He forbade unauthorized raids, divided the spoils into shares, and appointed Arban and Juzuan chiefs not by origin, but by talent. A new form of loyalty emerged, not to the clan, but to the law. It would be enshrined in his future great yasa, a set of rules ranging from the equal distribution of spoils to punishment for lying and desertion. With each passing year, those who were tired of strife gathered around Temujin. He brought back fugitives, fed the hungry, punished rapists even among his own people, and obliged widows and orphans to protect the community. In exchange, he demanded one thing: service. For the steppe, where power was often equal to whim, this was a new religion. The alliance with Togrul provided support. But even here the embers of jealousy smoldered. Wang Khan saw Temujin as an increasingly independent leader, and Wang Khan's entourage saw him as a threat to their privileges. During one of their campaigns, the Karites tried to lure Temujin into a trap, and he was only saved by leaving at night his horse, the moon, the silence of the snow, and the belief that the day of a new alliance would dawn. Years passed, and the Taijuts, Merkits, and small Tatar groups suffered defeat more and more often. Temujin won not so much by force as by consistency. First, he divided the enemy, then offered lenient terms to those who surrendered and iron to those who betrayed. He generously accepted foreign vassals, resettled tribes, breaking old clans into dozens so that loyalty would be horizontal, to the army, not to the uncle in the tent. The clashes with Jamuka were decisive. In one of the battles, when luck was on the side of the Borjigin, Jamuka fled. Temujin did not pursue him blindly. He knew that in the steppe, only resentment is faster than a horse. He became a great equalizer. He promised prisoners their lives if they accepted his law, and more annoyance, yesterday's enemies, became his 1,000 men. In 1204 to 1205, the Karites fell. Wang Khan died while fleeing. The Naimans, considered the strongest, still resisted under the leadership of Kukluk, but their power was crumbling. Jamuka, deprived of support, found himself on the run. And then one day he was brought to Temujin, bound, but not broken. His former brother-in-arms asked not for mercy, but for an honorable death, without bloodshed. Temujin granted his request. In the steppe, where cruelty is the language, it was a gesture of final respect. In the spring of 1206, the Noyans, shamans, and elders gathered on the banks of the Onon-Carolyn River for a grand Kurultai. The river's capes listened to the oaths, and the air was thick as a felt wall. Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan, worldwide. Oceanic Khan. There are many meanings and translations, but the meaning is the same: power over the united steppe. From that day on, his name became the name of an era. He consolidated what he had been building for years: the decimal system of the army, discipline instead of tribal whims. The great Yasa, law above blood, order and division of spoils, protection of ambassadors, responsibility for theft, prohibition of arbitrary revenge, service based on merit, from private to 1,000-man, commander for bravery and skill, not for origin. Couriers Yam, a network of stations with fresh horses, thanks to which news traveled faster than an arrow. Religious tolerance, shamans, Buddhists, Nestorians, Muslims, all could pray to their gods as long as they served the state. For the first time, the steppe got a machine where every warrior was a cog, and the law and loot were the lubricant. And when this machine started moving, the world around it realized that raids were no longer a coincidence, but a system. But before shaking China and Khwarezm, Genghis Khan removed the fragments of the old world. He finished off the Tatars, the very ones who had once poisoned Yasujii. He scattered the remnants of the Merkits and crushed the Naimans. He approached each enemy not only with his sword, but also with a choice: surrender, and you will be one of us. Resist, and you will disappear. Thus, an army grew, in which yesterday's rivals stood side by side. Thus, loyalty to an idea was created rather than to the clan's hat. At this moment, fate paused before the leap. In the east, the Jin Empire was already feeling the cold breath of the steppe. In the west, Khwarezm traded, grew rich, and mocked the nomadic savages. Genghis Khan was preparing 2 axes of war, eastern and western, and each would become a lesson for the world. China would see its walls crumble, and Central Asia would see what would happen to those who killed merchants under the banners of the steppe. But first, the night before the campaign, the Tumans stand in silence. The horses can be heard chewing dry grass. In the tent, they divide the spoils among the widows, confirm the leaders of the tens, and settle the last disputes. At the door stands a white banner mare, a symbol of the Khan's power. A man sits by the hearth, a man who was a boy in chains, a husband who did not abandon a child whose blood was in question, a brother who executed a friend without shame. He knows that tomorrow the steppe will spill over its banks. And when the sun rises over the burial mounds in the morning, the tail of the horse banner rustles in the wind. The world will learn the new name of war, a name that will become synonymous with order and horror, law and fire, logistics and lightning, a name after which maps will be redrawn. That name is Genghis Khan. The Mongolian steppe always looked south. There lay China, a land of cities, silk, grain, and iron. But for nomads, it was not only a land of wealth, but also a land of enemies. Dynasties that had tried for centuries to keep the steppe under lock and key. During the time of Genghis Khan, northern China was ruled by the Jin dynasty, created by the Jurchen people. Their capital, Zhongdu, later Beijing, was adorned with palaces, and their army numbered hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The Jurchen relied on walls and fortresses, but they knew that beyond the walls lay the will of the steppe, and that every winter could bring a raid. The first strikes. In 1209, Genghis Khan tested his strength on the western borders. In Xia, the Tangut state, Mongolian Tumans stormed into the desert, surrounded the cities, and the Tangut ruler acknowledged himself as a vassal. It was a trial run, siege warfare, diplomacy, subjugation. The next target was the Jurchen. In 1211, Genghis Khan moved south with a huge army. Chronicles mention up to 200,000 warriors. It was not just an army, but a new system of warfare. Genghis Khan's army. The Mongol army was organized on a decimal basis. Arban, 10. Juzuan, 100. Mingan, 1,000. Tuman, 10,000. Everyone knew their place. Discipline was ironclad. Desertion was punishable by death. But valor was rewarded instantly. The tactics were based on feigned retreats and speed. The cavalry moved 80 to 100 kilometers a day. The army was divided into parts, attacked from different sides, and led the enemy into a trap. The Great Wall does not save. In the summer of 1211, the Mongols crossed the Jin border. The guards on the towers of the Great Wall saw the dusty Tumans. And for the first time in centuries, the wall was no longer an obstacle. Mongol horsemen found passes, bypassed fortifications, and broke through where the enemy did not expect them. The first major battle took place at Yekulan. The Jin fielded a huge army, chronicles say, 300,000, but discipline was poor, and the commanders quarreled. Genghis Khan divided his forces, pretended to retreat, and lured the Jurchen into an unfavorable position. The Mongol cavalry closed in from the flanks, arrows rained down, and soon panic swept through the Jin ranks. It was a disaster. Tens of thousands of soldiers were killed, and the rest fled. The road to the capital. After their victory, the Mongols rushed deep into the country. Cities fell one after another. The nomads showed no mercy to those who resisted. But Genghis Khan often spared the lives of those who surrendered, cementing his reputation: resist, and you will die. Surrender, and you will live. In 1213, the Mongols stood at the walls of Zhuanda, the capital of Jin. It was a city with stone fortifications and tens of thousands of defenders. The Mongol cavalry could not storm the walls. Then Genghis Khan showed what distinguished him from a simple steppe warrior. He had learned the art of siege. The Mongols began to employ Chinese and Persian craftsmen. Siege towers, catapults, and battering rams appeared. They blocked rivers to leave cities without water, forced prisoners to build fortifications, and used smoke to suffocate the defenders. The sieges lasted for months. The Mongols surrounded cities with walls of stakes and moats, turning those who were used to besieging others into the besieged. The Jurchen surrender. In 1214, Emperor Jin realized that Zhong could not be held. He offered peace, recognized himself as a vassal of Genghis Khan, and paid a huge tribute: gold, silk, horses, women. The Mongols accepted. But soon the Jurchen broke the treaty. They moved their capital south to Kaifeng. For Genghis Khan, this was a challenge. In 1215, the Mongols marched on Zhong again. The city fell. Flames engulfed the streets, temples collapsed, and thousands of residents were killed or taken captive. This was a turning point. The Mongols showed that even the huge Chinese capitals could not be saved by walls. The legacy of the Eastern Campaign. 1. The Mongols mastered the art of siege warfare, from catapults to psychological warfare. 2. The army was tempered in battles against numerous enemies. 3. Their reputation for fear spread. Cities surrendered without a fight, just upon hearing of their approach. But most importantly, Genghis Khan realized that China was too rich to be left alone. New campaigns lay ahead, and each step south brought not only spoils, but also knowledge. In the west, another drama was brewing. There, beyond the deserts and mountains, lay the rich and self-confident Khwarezmian Empire. And the merchants, the very ones whom Genghis Khan considered sacred under the protection of the law, would soon be killed in its cities. And this would be the spark that would ignite a fire that would burn half the world. After defeating the Tanguts and Jurchen, the steppe got a taste of new horizons. But Genghis Khan was not just a conqueror for the sake of raiding. He saw trade, caravans, merchants, silk, spices, as the foundation of a future empire. And it was here, on the caravan route to Central Asia, that his interests clashed with those of Khwarezm Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad II. The Khwarezmian Empire. At the beginning of the 13th century, Khwarezm stretched from the Caspian Sea to India, from Iran to the Sir Darya. Its capitals, Urgench, Samarkand, Bokhara, were shining cities, centers of science and trade. Wealth flowed along the Great Silk Road, and the ruler Muhammad considered himself not only the ruler of the region, but also a contender for domination over the entire Muslim East. But his character combined ambition and suspicion. This proved to be a fatal mistake. First contacts. Around 1218, Genghis Khan sent a trade caravan with hundreds of merchants to Khwarezm. He wanted to establish communication, exchange goods, and form an alliance. But in the city of Otrar, the local governor, fearing espionage, arrested the caravan and ordered the merchants to be killed. Genghis Khan demanded that the culprits be handed over. The Khwarezm Shah not only refused, but also executed the Mongol envoys. In the steppe tradition, the murder of envoys was sacrilege. The Khan exploded with rage. "You have shed the blood of merchants and envoys. Now I will shed yours." The campaign begins. In 1219, a huge Mongol army crossed the Sir Darya. Chronicles speak of 150 to 200,000 warriors. But the main thing was not the number, but the system of warfare. The Mongols moved in several corps, each with its own task. Some went along the rivers, others across the steppe, and still others bypassed from the south. The Khwarezm Shah gathered even more forces, perhaps up to 400,000. But he did not trust his commanders, suspected conspiracies, and feared a decisive battle. Instead of giving battle, he scattered his forces among the cities. This led to his downfall. Bokhara. In the spring of 1220, the Mongols approached Bokhara, a rich center of Islamic culture. The city walls seemed impregnable, but the defenders' discipline was weak. The chronicles tell us that when the Mongol troops entered, Genghis Khan went up to the main mosque. "I am the scourge of God. If you had not sinned, God would not have sent me upon you," he said. The city was plundered, but Genghis Khan spared some of the inhabitants, subjugating them. Samarkand. Next, Samarkand fell. There were 100,000 defenders here, but many were mercenaries who surrendered or defected to the Mongols. Betrayals broke out inside, and the gates were opened. The Mongols carried out a massacre, but again spared the craftsmen and artisans, sending them to Mongolia. The army was enriched with engineers, builders, and gunsmiths. Urgench. The capital of Urgench was defended desperately. The streets were narrow, and the Mongol cavalry could not turn around. The fighting went on house by house. The chronicles write of a monstrous massacre. Tens of thousands of residents died. The city was razed to the ground. This became one of the most brutal episodes of Genghis Khan's conquests. The pursuit of the Khwarezm Shah. Meanwhile, Muhammad himself fled. Instead of gathering his troops and giving battle, he rushed between cities. The Mongols pursued him until he found himself on an island in the Caspian Sea. There he died alone, tormented by illness and despair. His son Jalal ad-Din tried to resist. In 1221, he gathered an army in Persia and fought the Mongols on the Indus River. At first, he was successful, but soon the Mongol tactics turned the tide of battle. Jalal barely escaped by jumping into the river on horseback. The chronicles say that Genghis Khan, watching the battle from a hill, exclaimed, "Here is the father of a worthy son." Results of the Khwarezm Campaign. 1. The Khwarezmian Empire collapsed. Cities were burned, and the population was slaughtered or taken away. 2. The Mongols advanced to Iran, the Caucasus, and India. Their influence spread throughout the Muslim East. 3. Their reputation for terror was cemented. Rumors about the Mongols spread faster than their horses could run. Many cities surrendered without a fight. A herald for Europe. During this campaign, Genghis Khan sent reconnaissance detachments to the Caucasus and the steppes of southern Rus. In 1223, the Mongols encountered Russian princes and Palavtsians for the first time. The result was the Battle of Khalkha, where the Russian princes were defeated and the captured princes were suffocated under boards, with a feast held on their bodies. For Europe, this was the first echo of the coming storm. Legacy. The campaign against Khwarezm was not just a military victory. It was a change of worlds. The Mongols showed that walls and numbers do not save without discipline and unity. Genghis Khan transformed from a steppe lord into a terror of civilizations. Behind him lay the ruins of Samarkand and Urgench. Ahead of him lay China, Persia, the Caucasus, and the first steps towards Europe. After Khwarezm, while the dust of the Khwarezm steppes had not yet settled, Genghis Khan's army was already marching on. Garrisons, appointed governors, and transferred captive craftsmen remained in the west. But the Khan himself turned eastward. There, the war with the Jurchen Jin dynasty and the Tanguts Xia state remained unfinished. The Mongols did not know the meaning of the word respite. The army roamed like a storm that would not stop until it had burned everything to the ground. Second strike against the Jin. In 1220 to 1225, the Mongol armies resumed their attacks on northern China. The capital of the Jurchen had already fallen, but their state continued to resist. The Mongols again employed their favorite tactic, attacking with small units to stretch the enemy's forces, feigned retreats to lure the enemy into ambush, massive use of siege engines borrowed from the Chinese and Persians. The Jin lost city after city. By the 1230s, they had virtually ceased to exist, although they survived until the complete fall under Genghis Khan's successors. War with the Tanguts. The Tangut state of Xia had been a vassal of the Mongols since 1209. But when Genghis Khan went on his western campaign, the Tanguts dared to disobey his order and did not send troops. This was a deadly insult. In 1226, Mongolian Tumans once again entered the deserts and valleys of Xia. City after city fell. The Mongols destroyed irrigation systems, depriving the land of water. Crops died, and the inhabitants starved. In the end, the Tangut rulers surrendered. But the Khan did not forgive the betrayal. On his orders, the capital was burned and the dynasty destroyed. Xia ceased to exist. The last campaign. During this war, Genghis Khan was already old. Chronicles say that he was over 60, which was a great age by steppe standards. But he still commanded personally, participated in councils, and kept order. According to one version, he fell from his horse while hunting and was injured. According to another, he fell ill during the campaign. In the summer of 1227, the great Khan died in his campaign tent. The mystery of his burial. The location of his grave remains a mystery. According to legend, his body was taken to Mongolia, and everyone who encountered the procession was killed to keep the secret. The horses were driven on the ground to hide their tracks. Perhaps Genghis Khan rests in the Henty Mountains, where he was born. No archaeologist has yet found his tomb. This has become part of the myth. The Khan who conquered half the world disappeared into the steppe just as he had appeared. Legacy and division of the empire. After his death, power passed to his sons. Ugdi, one of the younger sons, was elected Great Khan because he was considered the most level-headed. The other sons, Joki, Shagatai, and Talyui, received their own fiefdoms. The empire was divided, but remained united in its desire to continue conquering. Indeed, under Genghis Khan's grandsons, the Mongols would reach Poland and Hungary, destroy Baghdad, and completely conquer China. The personality of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was not only a conqueror. He created a system, a law, the Great Yasa, that was the same for everyone. Military discipline based on tens and tumans. A postal service that was ahead of its time. Religious tolerance, rare for the era. The ability to use the talents of his enemies, engineers, craftsmen, scribes. His cruelty was legendary, but his order was no less formidable. Conclusion: by the time of his death, Genghis Khan's empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. No other state in the world had achieved such scale in such a short time. To his friends, he was a protector. To his enemies, he was God's punishment. He remained in the memory of the peoples as both a destroyer and a creator. When the steppe fell silent again after his last campaign, it seemed that the wind had carried away the name of Genghis Khan. But with each passing decade, it returned in the form of the armies of his sons and grandsons. For some, he was a bloody barbarian. For others, he was a unifier and the lawgiver of a new era. But one thing is certain: the world after Genghis Khan was never the same again.